two action titans throwing down both on-screen and seemingly off-screen in front of thousands of reporters. A director now known for tentpole disaster flicks, working on a big budget for the first time, replacing yet another director who couldn't make it work. A script that dips its toes into at least 4 different genres, featuring many shots of Jean Claude Van Damme's naked body, bullets, bomb, and a whole lot of killing. This is what happened to Universal Soldier. If you were a fan of action movies with a darker sci-fi edge to their storylines in the 80s and 90s, Carolco Pictures was likely behind some of your favorites. By the time Universal Soldier darkened their desks around February of 1990, the company had already been involved with films like First Blood and They Live. This was even before Terminator 2 and Total Recall. If you had a dark action flick, Carolco was the place to take it. Universal Soldier wouldn't come to fruition until 1992. Originally, the studio hired Andrew Davis to helm the Christopher Leitch-written project. The director had already been responsible for 2 of Steven Seagal's best films in Above the Law and Under Siege. When it came to taking larger-than-life characters and formulating them into semi-believable films, he was the guy for the job. Until he wasn't. It's said that Davis walked away due to budget concerns and creative differences. A little hard to imagine considering he once managed to keep Steven Seagal's supersized ponytailed ego in check. But alas, one man's FUBAR situation is another man's dream job. Enter Roland Emmerich. Emmerich had been working on another messy film for Carolco at the time, the famously never-made Ridley Scott sci-fi epic called Isobar, where Sylvester Stallone would have fought off against a genetic monster on a high-speed train in the future. Like we said, Carolco had a type, and I miss it dearly. Frequent Emmerich collaborator and future Independence Day writer Dean Devlin was also working on the abandoned project before Carolco decided to scrap it entirely and put the pair on Universal Soldier instead. In the commentary track, Emmerich explained that he took the movie to prove that as an up-and-coming director, he could handle a big film and its accompanying budget. Devlin and Emmerich were brought on board to a project that had already cast its 2 leading men in Dolph Lundgren and Jean Claude Van Damme. Van Damme was quickly becoming a star off the back of his amazing physical prowess in films like Bloodsport and Kickboxer. He also had the rare ability to be both larger than life and the sympathetic underdog simultaneously, a karate-fueled mix of the 2 personas of Schwarzenegger and Stallone. Lundgren had found fame in his role as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV years before, and solidified himself not only as an amazing physical villain, but someone who could chew some massive scenery. Though at the time, Universal Soldier and its $23 million budget would be the biggest production that Van Damme had ever worked on, he originally rejected the script, citing that he thought it was stupid and that no one would believe in the half-human storyline. After Emmerich and Devlin roundhoused the script a few times, Van Damme came around, praising their work as a special concept. You always wonder with a concept like this how your 2 lead physical specimens were going to react to sharing the screen together. Dolph had seen Bloodsport and kept hearing of what he called this tough Belgian before meeting him in person at the Carolco offices. His first impressions were that he was a smart and clever man, not only when it came to filmmaking, but with his personal image. The 2 also bonded over the fact that they weren't fans of the first script that they'd received before Emmerich and Roland came along, both of them rejecting it. In regard to how Emmerich and Devlin changed the script, they simply formatted around the actors that they already had in tow, playing up what they would call Jean-Claude's sweetness against the contrast of Dolph's darkness, something that they had to coax out of the big guy a bit. But once Dolph bought in, he went all out. And we'd have to agree, whether it was recency bias from Masters of the Universe or an aversion to appreciating the acting abilities of action stars, Dolph Lundgren has been fully appreciated for just how great of a villain that he was in the film. The finally completed screenplay opens up with Lundgren's Sergeant Scott and Van Damme's Luke Devereaux as human soldiers in Vietnam in 1969. Scott is literally crocheting himself a necklace made up of his victim's ears, like it's a goddamn Taylor Swift bracelet swap in hell. He's lost his mind, murdering innocent people. When Devereaux attempts to stop him, the 2 end up killing each other. The incident is covered up by the army, and they are cryogenically frozen Demolition Man style before being reanimated for the Unisol program, where they bring back the dead with super soldier abilities. They're given a neural serum to keep their memory suppressed, like some sort of non-emo Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But Devereaux has a glitch, holding on to some of his memories and overall humanity. which leads to his old sergeant hunting him down, along with a reporter that he's befriended along the way. The role of the reporter, Veronica Roberts, went to the charismatic Ali Walker. Her and Jean Claude had a great relationship on the set, which came across in their performances, specifically in comedic scenes that included having to bathe his naked body down in ice cubes or cut out a tracking system in his calf while he's bent over, again naked, in front of her. There's a ton of underrated comedy here that often ends up with JCVD naked. The ladies love those buns. During the commentary, Emmerich joked about these scenes, saying that they were required by law back then to show Jean Claude's ass in every film. He joked that you would receive a fine if you didn't, but he also praised Jean Claude's awareness of what his fans wanted and felt compelled to give it to them in a way that incorporated itself naturally in the story. If you're wondering about semantics, Emmerich has you and him covered, saying he had like a little sock over it, like a little thing. Jesus, Roland, take it easy with the word little. Van Damme wouldn't appreciate that. Jokes aside, what critics mistook for unintentional comedy, Devlin would explain was actually very intentional. They were trying to make fun of action movies, but be one at the same time, which really adds an ahead-of-its-time meta Kevin Williamson, Wes Craven element to the film. While there was darkness at times, it was, like Scream, in contrast to some of the more comedic moments. For example, you have Dolph Lundgren's character chewing scenery in a grocery store, delivering a dark monologue and shooting police, while somewhere else, Van Damme hilariously learns how much he likes to eat, while effortlessly kicking the shit out of a bunch of rednecks. Going back and experiencing Universal Soldier in 4K in the year 2025, you also realize just how much of a visual cinematic achievement it is. From an opening fight scene in Vietnam that was filmed on a golf course in Arizona, to a chase scene featuring large military vehicles across the breathtaking backdrop of the Grand Canyon. Amongst its endless action, the production featured no CGI, and only one scene that included the use of a model. A scene that went back and forth between live-action shots and a model of two large vehicles plunging from the top of a mountain and exploding in the desert. It's a gorgeously shot, wide-scope film from cinematographer Carl Walter Lindenlaub. Not to mention well-choreographed action scenes from Emmerich and crew, featuring Universal soldiers careening face first and down the Hoover Dam from 700 feet up, or building a motel from scratch just to fire over 10,000 rounds of ammunition and drive a classic car through it. All of this bookended by two kick-ass throwdowns between two of the greatest action heroes to ever grace the silver screen, the latter of which was almost very different, in a bad way.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
The film's original ending, which can be found on multiple physical media editions, Devereaux dispatches Scott after he ruthlessly shoots his mother down on the porch. As Devereaux goes to reunite with Veronica, his supposed father shockingly shoots him before Jerry Orbach's Dr. Gregor shows up with a bunch of dudes in trench coats. Gregor hastily explains that these aren't actually Devereaux's parents, but merely plants meant to help capture him. His fake father and the henchmen then start unloading their guns into him like he's Michael Myers at the end of Halloween 4. We get a weird T2-style epilogue from Veronica about how Devereaux spent his last 2 months of life surrounded by his real family, rejecting all medical treatment and teaching her the meaning of life: depression. Roland admitted that everyone was excited, high-fiving, and having a great time in the moment, until the ending left them quite dismayed and confused. They hated it, and all of this weirdly depressing Meet Joe Black nonsense was taken out of the film and replaced with an extended fight scene reshoot instead. The reshoots took place inside the barn over the course of a single day's 24-hour-long shoot, flawlessly edited into the original ending. We still end the fight with Devereaux triple-kicking Scott into the hay harvester and dropping, "You're discharged, Sarge." Before watching Scott's remains fly ears first out of the grinder. Only in this case, we're treated first to an extended fight scene, where Scott beats Devereaux's ass all around the barn, until Devereaux finds some super serum, jacks himself up, and delivers the kind of underdog ass whooping that the best action movies are made of. The fight scenes were great, and so was the relationship between the two leads. Dolph explained that at first there was some tension between the two on the first day because of their competitive natures, but all of that dissipated rather quickly, as the two spent the next 3 months beating the hell out of each other on set. Jean Claude would tell a story of how they kept a truck on set full of training gear and mirrors. JCVD would later use his healthy competition as a marketing ploy when the two actors were at the Cannes Film Festival. Ever the self-promoter, Van Damme knew the film was still in post-production and that they had no footage to promote. So he called up Dolph, and the two staged a fake dust-up in front of hundreds of members of the press at the event, thinking that they were witnessing a real-life scuffle between the two action titans. The two exchanged some words and a few light shoves before they were harmlessly broken up. Mission accomplished, as it was all anyone could talk about. That's what I call viral marketing. Universal Soldier released in 1992 to a worldwide gross of $95 million on a $23 million budget. That's no Avatar, of course, and critics unfortunately weren't quite capable of understanding its genius. But that didn't stop it from becoming beloved, spawning multiple sequels, a comic book series, and even a video game. Those involved with the film many years later seem happy with the result as well. Dolph remembers it as a career boost for everyone involved. Writer Dean Devlin sees it as a fun and original film, and even Roland Emmerich, who hates watching his earlier work, admits that it was better than he originally thought. Damn straight, Roland. Damn straight. And that is what happened to Universal Soldier.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.